So it sort of starts with me talking about my experiences of trading cards in the school playground, and I wasn't particularly good at that. I have a story where I would have been 9 years old, and we hadn't seen the Jungle or Fossil set yet in England, and I had never pulled a Charizard, and in the end, I decided there was a kid who had a Charizard, and I was going to offer him money for his Charizard. So I was ahead of the game then, but I offered him £10 for his Charizard, to which he gladly accepted, which was a good deal if you look at it now. But if you then skip forward a week, he brought in a jungle set, and I had never seen it before, and I saw him holding a Rhydon, and I went over, and I couldn't believe it, this basic jungle set Rhydon. And I traded the Charizard that I bought for a Rhydon. So it's stories like that I don't know, obviously trading Pokemon cards in the school playground might not have been something that you ever got to do, but do you have any stories where you can remember you made a good deal in terms of your trade for a card, or you were able to sort of swap some cards, you got a good deal, a bad deal? Is there anything like that you can remember?
Well, relating to your story, I have two sons right at your age. So I think they're 29, 28 and 29, or 29 and 30 now. And it got so bad here in the States that schools banned Pokemon. And this is like February 1999. They banned Pokemon, wouldn't allow them in the schools, because there was too many cases of people making bad trades, parents getting angry, parents showing up to the school and saying, my son had a Charizard and now he has this Rhydon, and things like that. And the schools got fed up, so they banned Pokemon for probably a year. No Pokemon allowed on campus, on any of our schools. So yeah, I can definitely identify with a number of cases where it happened with my boys, but for my boys, it was a little bit the opposite, because I was so aware and into them, and I watched them so closely that unfortunately they were the ones taking advantage of other kids, not really meaning to take advantage. They were 9, 10 years old, but if somebody had a Charizard, they wanted my Rhydon, I would do it. Who wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
So,
wow.
But anyway, so they banned that. And as far as me, I like to say every single card I've ever sold, I've regretted. And that's going back over 20 years, thousands and thousands of transactions. I have never felt good about selling anything. And especially now, when you see the values of this stuff, it only reinforces that feeling that, well, had I not sold those in 2005 or 2002, today they're worth 20, 30 times as much. So, yeah, as far as selling things for cash, I regret every one I ever did. Now, trading is a little bit different story. I have made trades, where I just needed a card or a set of cards so bad, I took the worst of the trade. But I didn't feel like it was the worst, because I was getting something I really, really wanted. And for specifics, I used to sell a lot of first edition base rares, non-hollows, because I opened a lot of boxes. And when the subsequent sets came out, the Gym Challenge and the Neos, and I wanted to get those, I would trade my first edition base rares and commons and uncommons for the newer, rares and commons, uncommons, and the Neos and the Gyms. Obviously, today I know better. I regret all those. But sometimes it's just a thing of what do you want the most, and then maybe that's worth the value differential.
Sure. It's interesting to sort of lead into that. I never knew anything about that Pokemon was banned there for It just shows you, obviously, the popularity of it. But
I guess that didn't happen in the UK, huh?
it definitely didn't happen. No,
Wow,
no. We had our parents spending all their money on Pokemon cards when we were 9 or 10 years old. But leading into the cost of cards, like you were talking about, there's been obviously a large Pokemon community online, Instagram, for example, and E4 for a long time. And you have lots of different stories from people telling you, I remember when I bought this card, 8 years ago for £500, and today it's worth £200,000. And it's interesting to sort of hear those stories. And I don't think I've sort of seen many of them in the mainstream YouTube videos, because I think a lot of them are fairly new to collecting. Do you have any stories, or could even just recall the cost of cards in relation to what they were when you first started collecting 20 to 10 years ago, for instance, in comparison to what they are now and what they cost?
Well, absolutely everything is, as time went on, got to be more valuable. There was a couple of years in the early 2000s where Pokemon tailed off a little bit, leveled off in values, or maybe dropped a touch. And so all those years, besides those 2-3 years, there's been a steady upcline in values. Charizards, of course, have never had a drop off. They've just been higher for 22 years. So yes, they do. The values, definitely have gone up. And for me, I have so many specific cases. I can do that most recent one everybody knows about, and that is Logan. When Logan came over and I sold him a card. You saw that video, I'm sure.
Sure.
Yeah. And I sold him that card for $150,000 US, and that was a record price ever paid for that card at the time. And yet, after he bought it, and that got advertised, which is kind of what I expected, it shot up to double, 300,000. So you could say, maybe Gary regrets selling that card for 150,000. when it was only to, within a month or two, whether it was double in price. Well, I don't, not a bit. In fact, I expected it. Remember, I have 6 more. And by doing that deal and having those prices increase on that card, it raised the value of the 6 I have, and, way more than what I lost on the one card. Those other cards made up for the value. And so one of the last things I said to myself before I told Logan I'd sell him that card was, well, first of all, what is this going to do for the hobby? I knew it was going to be big for the hobby. Secondly, what's it going to do for the values? I knew it would be good for the values, and I'm sitting there with more. So by doing that deal and giving up that money, that amount of money in increase, it increased all the others. So, that's really the truth about that. And I didn't have to go back very far. There's a lot of current examples of that happening. Things that, that I sold and they went way up. But then again, a lot of things I bought went way up too. So it kind of evened out.
Sure. So could you give any specific examples that you remember of a card that you may have seen or may have bought? For instance, Charizard's, doesn't have to be Charizard, and how much it would have cost you many years ago in comparison to how much it would possibly be worth today?
Well, let's if you don't mind, how about let's start off with a base set Pokemon pack. Okay, the packs that you could buy, right, in 1999.
Sure.
The base set first edition Pokemon packs, when they first came out in January of 1999, they were approximately $5, $4.99, something like that, $5 US. And as soon as they came out, they were, Pokemon just caught on fire immediately, so they were no longer available. And I mean, they were no longer available at those prices. Well, by February and March of 1999, that price of that Pokemon pack, you could get some at some of the shows for about $50, $60. So in just 2 months, it went from, $5 to $50, say, in that. Well, that has steadily gone up too. If you take it, let me get this back on. If you go by today, now those same packs are selling for $20,000, if they're unweighed. So all the way from $5 to maybe $50 for a year back then. And then it just steadily went up where now they've blown up, and now you can't get a heavy pack for under $25,000. So now there's a lot of cards that, it's the same example, where you can pretty much say the same thing. The Charizards I bought, I mainly collect Charizards. Back in the early part of the game in 1999, I was buying base unlimited Charizards for about $25. And within a couple years, that had gone up to about $100. And then it slowly increased from there, 100, 110, until Pokemon Go came out in 2016, along with my Pawn Stars episode. Those suddenly, shot up to, $150. And now you can't get them for under $700, so, those are kind of extreme examples because we're talking about sealed packs and base Charizards, but you could almost put the name of any card in there and you would have that same result. What you paid back then to what you paid now, it's just the difference is exponential.
It's incredible to think. I mean, I think the prices from what I could see within the community started to go up in 2019 when the virus kind of started to hit. There was an increase. It started to go up, and then just the spark. And obviously, you were a big part of, had a role to play in that, as you say, with that episode with Logan. As well with the Charizard and the world sort of seeing that, and if you like, went completely viral, and people just jumped in, obviously, didn't they? And the price has just gone unbelievable. So, I wanted to talk to you on the topic of Charizard, going back to what I mentioned at the start in terms of talking to people about and kind of educating them beyond maybe what people have seen in Logan's videos. Mm-hmm. And that's talking about trophy cards and holy grails. Now, in Logan's videos, Charizard is king. And across the Pokemon world, Charizard is, of course, king. And you're the ultimate trainer of those, of those Charizards. So I wanted to talk to you about, for you, is Charizard the ultimate holy grail within collecting? And if so, why? However, if you don't feel that way, what are the other cards that are the holy grails and trophy cards? And I don't know if you have any there that you could sort of show to camera, but could you talk to me a bit about that?
Yeah, I actually do feel that way. I feel that the one constant, the one, like I said, the value increases, never went down, just kept going up and up and up in popularity and value, is the Charizards. You could never go wrong, with those cards. I don't care what condition, I don't care what series they were from. The Charizards, they're definitely that. Now, what do I think about the trophy cards? Well, the English trophies, I'm not that that high on, but the original Japanese trophies are another one of those items. They're so iconic, they're so rare, and if it wasn't for all of us, being brought up on the English Pokemon, then the Japanese trophies would probably be number one, because there's certainly a close number two to me and to people that I know.
Sure.
Now, if you get the chance to talk to S.M. Pratt, Scott Pratt, of course, he's the king of the trophies, especially the Japanese trophies. He's the most educated. He has turned over more of those than anybody in the world. he's going to tell you the most iconic is those Japanese trophies. So I never collected them because we weren't brought up, me and the boys weren't brought up on those. I did collect Korokoros like we discussed earlier. I did collect the Japanese Lucky Stadiums. I collected the second tier, promo cards from Japan. The vending machine cards, the vending sheets, and I collected all those. But the high dollar Japanese trophies, I never did because I've had them through my hands many times, but I couldn't wait to sell them or trade them to get what I really wanted. Did that turn out to be a mistake? Yeah, sure. I wish I had every single one back now, because now those values are just out of sight, and but I didn't, and so that's how I feel. I feel Charizards are first. Trophies would have been first if only the English speaking countries was a little more into them back then, which we just simply weren't.
Sure. So the holy grail for you within collecting would be Charizard.
Yeah, and that's why my Charizard collection is so vast and diverse, and yeah.
So
yeah.
Next, I talk about the sealed boxes in the documentary and how there's this new craze of opening them and selling the packs, and I then go on to the fact that the prices have gone up so much, and this is happening a lot. There are people obviously making a lot of money, but in that there are also people who are scamming people, which isn't a new thing within the Pokemon card community. There's always been stories of people telling you avoid this seller and be careful here and there.
You're very right about that. A lot of people don't realize it either, that even going back to 1999, there were rewraps and there were scammers even in the very beginning. People seem to think that it's a new thing, but like you said, it absolutely is not.
Well, that's I think, like I say, with the Pokemon card community, especially in Instagram, everyone that I've always followed, there's always stories going around, and there always has been. The biggest example on YouTube was recently with a gentleman named the Collectibles Guru. You may have seen there was the box opening, and people got very suspicious of his body language and the way that he reacted when he found out. I don't want anyone to sort of specifically talk about that, but what that incident showed was that there could potentially be other fraudulent items on the market, which people might not be able to verify until 10 years' time when they may decide to open the boxes or whatever it may be. So that's what I wanted to sort of ask you. Is it possible that there are these fraudulent items on the market and the owner may not know about it?
Yes, a great example is Rusty from TCA Gaming. Big YouTuber, wonderful guy, great seller, great Pokemon enthusiast, wonderful family, and a good friend of mine. Rusty from TCA Gaming. He owned a box, a first edition base box that he had. He's just as much a collector as a seller. He had one of every single box ever made, and including the first edition base box. And he had it for about 5, 6, 7 years. And you're talking about a true expert, right? 5, 6, 7 years he had that box in his collection, maybe more. If I don't, I might, it might be even more than that. Well, one day something just made him pull that box out and take closer looks at it. And he decided, well, I'm going to open these and I'm going to sell the packs. And because the wrap was maybe a little loose or there was a little ding on one of the corners and he wanted a more pristine box. Well, he opened it up on YouTube. You can find it. It's on there. And it turned out it was a rewrap. And you're talking about one of the true experts in the game, and somebody who most of the time would know the difference. And yet he got fooled, right? That's pretty impressive. He got fooled.
What
And
happens?
so, mhm.
Sorry, what happens then? For instance, if you buy a box 7 years ago or 6 years ago, as you say, and you pay obviously 6, 7 years ago, it wouldn't have been the same price you'd pay today, but still a fortune effectively. But
Right.
what happens if you do that? What happens to your money? Can you get your money back?
Total loss. Rusty took a total loss on that box because it was too many years later to maybe even find the person or know the person. Legally, you can't do anything, anything about it. I can tell you my only experience in my life with a counterfeit sealed Pokemon item. The only one, and I've been buying and selling for 22 years, Pokemon cards. The only time I got it was I purchased, it was around 2004. I purchased a case of first edition base boxes. And I bought it from a fellow in Belgium. And this would, now people know, I've educated people since, but because there was a lot of scammers, especially back then from Belgium, who were doing this.
Right.
But as soon as I got the box, the case, I opened up one of the boxes. I realized they were rewraps. I immediately put in a claim for it. I got it was only like 3,000 each. It was about 20,000, for the case of 6 boxes. Whereas today, of course, you're talking, maybe $500,000 each, times 6. So you're talking 3 million. But then I paid like 20,000 for a case, and I was able to get my money back. I had to return the case to Belgium, and I got my money back, fortunately. But now with what you're saying, what if I hadn't? What if I had kept that case sealed, put it back into my collection and not touched it for many years, and now broke it up and started selling the boxes all over the place, and every single one was counterfeit, was rewraps. Just imagine, how that would have been. So I got caught one time and I escaped the trap. And, fortunately, because one day I might have ended up selling them, and then a lot of people would have gotten hurt, and I would have gotten hurt even more.
Sure. I think reputation is a big thing. I think that's, I won't include this part in the documentary, but going back to Collectibles Guru, he's now become, especially across YouTube, he's become the face of scamming in Pokemon. There's many videos made about the guy, and you go onto his Instagram page as well. There's still people that go for him and say you're a scammer. So reputation, I think, is a big thing in Pokemon, in the trading world.
I have no idea why anybody. In fact, I've spoken to Logan 3-4 times about this. To let him know, don't let this guy in your house. Don't let him into your videos. I said the attention, the good stuff that you're doing in that, he's going to suck up a lot of the attention, and then people are going to, that's going to reflect bad on you, on Logan. And, he listens to me about a lot of things, but he doesn't listen to me about that, because the other day with this other box break, he actually had Collectibles Guru, Jake is his name, actually had him come to his house, buy a pack, and sure enough, it didn't do him any good at all. So no, that fellow is a total cancer. But I can tell you, I don't care if you record this part, but I can tell you that he did sell a fake box where he was there in his body language. You're right. He did not know that box was going to be opened. You can tell by his actions, right?
Yeah.
But then the fellow who bought him, Chris from Dumb Money, fortunately he opened it, and then they discovered it. And then Jake, Collectibles Guru, brought him another box, and Chris opened it up, and it was a good box.
Right.
Now, here's the interesting part. That box, the second box, the good box that they've already inspected and opened, Chris is giving me that box, just giving it to me on March 12th at the Collecticon. I'm going there for an appearance at Collecticon in Texas, and that's in Frisco, Texas. And Chris is going to meet me there. He's going to give me that box outright for no charge, no nothing, to put towards Steve Aoki's and my charity.
Oh, wow.
And then, now remember, we're talking almost $500,000, right?
Yeah.
Plus it's an iconic box. It's a famous box. It's the real one that Collectibles Guru brought, and it was all inspected and it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And yet Chris is trusting me to give that to me. I'll be bringing it back to Las Vegas here where I live.
Yeah.
And then Steve Aoki and I, and along with Chris, will be coming out to Vegas. We'll be doing a pack opening with 100% of the proceeds going to the Aoki Foundation. Wow. So, it's funny how things go full cycle. It turns out that horrible bad experience that scared so many people into not wanting to buy anything, is going to go to helping more kids than we can even count. So, so that's quite a coincidence. You brought it up, but that's the end of that's the rest of the story.
That's brilliant. That's a great story. That's very admirable as well of him to give it to you. So that's wonderful.
First off, that he would even trust me, right? I mean, I'm going to Texas. He's going to put a $500,000 box in my hand and say, "There you go, Gary. I'll see you in the fall. When our event's going to be," right?
Wow.
I mean, that says a lot right there.
Yeah.
And just that he would be so generous to do it in the first place is just fabulous.
Wow.
I mean, what an inspiration dumb money is, especially Chris, who I deal with the most.
Wow, that's lovely. So going back to Logan and talking on the topic of Logan. So really the sort of conclusion is to find out what the impact YouTube has actually had on the trading card game, and whether the hype can continue as it is, and whether the prices can continue. Really sort of, as someone that has a voice on YouTube and follows everything, it seemed as if it really sort of started with Leon Hart, when Leon Hart opened that first edition Charizard and had an orgasm, when he did. It seemed as if that was a key moment. It brought the card game back into the attention of, it was across a lot of news headlines on the internet. And from there was a slight popularity and surge in popularity. And then, of course, Logan's first video, when he bought the box, was where I feel like the spark really came. And what I wanted to ask you is what is the true impact, do you believe, so far that YouTube has had on Pokemon cards? And can the prices and the hype continue?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd have to add that there were a lot of sparks even well before that. There were actually a lot of sparks, with YouTube, the YouTube influence. A lot of things happened before Lee Steinfeld, Leon Hart, who again is a very good friend of mine. Every time I go to Texas, we get together, we film videos together. You'd probably see some. I think him and I have done like 5 or 6 videos together. That was a great moment when that happened, but there were many great moments even before that. Of course, 2016, the Pokemon Go craze was a huge spark. My Pawn Stars episode was just an absolute monster spark. Definitely. Which was the whole reason I did it. I did it to promote the game, the hobby. I was never going to sell my cards, right? Unless I was forced to, under contract or something. But YouTube's influence, I mean, it seems all of these sparks can be traced back to YouTube. All these sparks had to do without YouTube. this would not be the biggest franchise in the history of the world. YouTube pretty much made, not only made a lot of the influencers in all the different categories, but it really helped make Pokemon, cause the resurgence. I mean, you can't put YouTube on without seeing box breaks, and that's just dwindling the amount of sealed product. But there's good money in it. Like with Lee, he puts one of those things up. It's great for his channel. It's great for his followers, and the quantity of what's left sealed is dwindling. So that only figures to get better. But yeah, I think I could safely say that just about every one of those sparks you're talking about, even the ones well before, way before all this, was thanks to YouTube.
So it's had quite an impact, that's for sure.
And continues to.
Yeah.
And with this being the 25th anniversary year, there's going to be more and more popularity. Things are just going to grow, bigger. The followers, the people coming into the hobby, which I know a lot about, because I get 1,000 messages a day. People saying, "Well, I saw you on Pawn Stars. That got me back in the hobby," or I saw you with Logan or with Steve Aoki, and that got us back. These things are going to keep happening this year, and more people are going to come back into the hobby. Yeah. Kind of like what you said you did, a couple of years ago. You started seeing this and you started collecting again because you remembered the nostalgia of it in that. Well, there's no end to that. That's just, I get as many messages today as I did 2 years ago, about getting new people coming back to the hobby.
It's quite incredible. I mean, the Pokemon community on YouTube has been going for years, 10 plus years. I mean, I think the oldest one that I can remember or can find is a guy called Max Mofo, Australian guy, who's been opening packs for 10 plus years, sort of slowly going about his business. So there's that foundation has always been there. So really the sort of conclusion that I come to is it's impossible to know whether the hype can continue. I mean, how do you feel about that? Do you believe that this hype train will continue to just go? Is it possible? And are the prices eventually going to come down to where they were?
Yeah, this question came up in 1999 because there was a huge frenzy for Pokemon cards when it first came out in the English language. And, people were asking, these are expensive now, you're collecting, and we had just come out of the age of Beanie Babies that turned out to be a big flop, right? They were hugely popular throughout the 90s. And then, there were just so many of them. It just, just fell apart and they weren't worth anything anymore. Plus with 1980s, 1990s sports cards, baseball, the steroid era, those, end up being, people were throwing, thousands of them away in the trash in that. And so when Pokemon came along, 1999, and we went through that first 6 months of a frenzy, people had those failures on their mind, from the previous decade. And they thought, well, is this going to fall apart? Is this going to make it? Is this just a waste of money, or is just another Beanie Babies in that? Well, I have been collecting since those early days. I was telling you about when we didn't have a TV set. I was collecting football players that were on bottle caps. I started then. I've collected my whole life. I've collected probably 100 different types of collectibles, types of items in all these years. And I have never seen anything to match what's happened in the Pokemon world. And there's been a lot, there are a lot of good hobbies. There's a lot of, good things. And there's, but I've never seen anything like this before. So in 1999, when people were saying that, when people were driving out of state to get packs for their kids, and you never saw it. They might line up at Target or Walmart, right? They might line up at the market to get packs, but they're not going to drive 500 miles to another state to get packs. Well, with Pokemon, they did. And it was so unprecedented when people asked me back in 1999, well, is this going to last? Is this going to keep going? I always said, absolutely. I said, I can't see it failing because the people's reaction and the young people that are now growing up, I just don't see it ever, falling backward, becoming another Beanie Baby. Well, throughout the next 20 years, there were a couple of rough patches, but it always came through. A new Pokemon movie came out in the mid part of the last decade, with the Pokemon Go, and then, like you said, with the beginning of 2019, with the COVID and with the extra. Let me tell you something. There's always something that is keeping it alive. And that I don't think that's a coincidence. Now with the 25th anniversary in 2021, there's a lot of things going on, with that, with the Logan Paul stuff, with Steve Aoki's doing quite a few things with it, with the Tokyo Olympics coming up, with Pokemon Company being one of the sponsors, and some stuff that's going to do. Plus, the Pokemon Company has a lot of new things coming out all throughout the year we're not even aware of yet, and so it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And now these kids, I don't know if you have any kids, but kids, the kids from yesterday are having kids today, and they're into Pokemon. They're enjoying it. The dads and the kids and the moms together are enjoying it. And those kids are going to grow up. Pokemon's still going to be there. I like to say in 1999 with my boys, there was no Pokemon before that, right? It was all new to all three of us. Well, now as they've grown up, they're your age now about, and now they have kids, that are, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and they're actually enjoying Pokemon together. Whereas parents of in the beginning, they were just doing it to participate with the kids. Now the parents are enjoying participating with the kids. And listen, the series, the sets are still coming out. Those kids, our kids are growing up every day, and 10 years from now, 15 years from now, they're going to be the doctors, the lawyers, the journalists. They're going to be the ones that are going to end up having all the money. They're going to be, Pokemon's still going to be there. They're going to have kids. The way I like to put it is, for 15 years after the last set is made by Pokemon International or Nintendo, the last set they make, the hobby is more than safe for another 10 to 20 years after that. So I'm sure that answers your question, how I feel about the prospects. And I'll tell you what, I no longer have an interest in the game in that, because I'm not selling any more of those cards. I'm retired now. Now all I do is promote the hobby and support the hobby, doing things like this with you. It's why I want to do this with you, because what you're doing is you're coming from a little bit of a different angle and promoting what means so much to me. You see, that's why when you asked me and we got to talking, this is exactly what I want to do. So, honestly, I thank you, for what you're doing, because it makes a difference. This is going to get to some people that are going to scratch their head, and they're going to think, I had an old binder years ago. I wonder, and then they're going to go get that binder and, things like that. So that's really where I'm at today. I just want to promote the hobby. I do appearances all the time, a lot of interviews, but I do appearances all just to meet the people, to show them some valuable cards and let them hold them in their hands and things like that. So
Sure.
I hope that answers that.
It does indeed. I think there's a really key point that you made about, the people that were into it having kids, and they're now having kids and just having a good time. And that's really my conclusion of what's happening is it's impossible to know exactly what will happen. And I think the point is all these box breaks, there's only so many boxes left in the world to open now, everyone's breaking them all open. So, that may potentially die down in terms of opening these old sealed products. But in that sense, people will move on to another part of the hobby, and I think that process continues. But what I've noticed the most is that regardless of everything, all the new people that are coming into the hobby, and in general, not just trading cards, but new to Pokemon, young kids, even older people who are getting into it, is they're having a great time, and they're enjoying it. And I think that's what it's all about, is making sure that people are having a good time and enjoying it. And it means, you can see that it means so much to so many people. So my real kind of final question to you and to everyone that I'm talking to is, what does Pokemon mean for you in your life?
Well, I mean, to say it plays a major and has always played a major role in my life, would be, understating. It's basically, for the last 20 years, it's basically not only sustained me, but it's taken care of my retirement. It's kept me close with my children. It's just brought me, so much joy. And again, I've been collecting my whole life different things, but the joy that I get from this, I'll give you an example. I was at church tonight, and three people came up to me and, said, "King Pokemon," said, "How are you, Gary?" Right? That recognized me at church, and it just made me feel so good. That it just shows that I made a difference in, and it's kind of like my Charizard collection. Really, pretty much defines who I am. It's what I'm known for in that. And I'll tell you the truth. I'm proud to have it be that way too.
It's a nice answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice answer. I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's just that love. And I think for most people, being known and recognized for something is important. It feels like that's what social media is effectively. So being recognized, and I think some people are recognized for not such good things, but for something like this, I think it's true. Like when in your description, when I talk about who you are initially, I do a little introduction for everyone that I'm interviewing.
Uh-huh.
I call you the king of Charizards, the king of Pokemon. That's what you're known as, and it's, as you said, it must be great to be that way, and for people to have a huge amount of respect as well for what you've done for the game, because
it makes me feel good, and yet it gives me an opportunity to make them feel good too.
Yeah.
Because too often I get people that recognize me but don't want to bother me, don't want to say anything. So because they'll look at me and you can tell they kind of recognize you, but they don't say anything. And I always say to them, "Hi, how you doing? I'm Gary." And because it means a lot to them, too. And so, let me get this. There we go.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, for me, that sort of covers everything for the documentary. It's been lovely. I was going to say as well, as a thank you, if you could send me the link or let me know where to go to the charity, and I can make a donation as well for you as a thank you.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank
so if
you.
you could if you do that, or is it in your any of your profiles to find it?
It's the Aoki Foundation
Okay.
.org/Pokemon.